Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe and episode 2 of this multi-part series where we break down and analyze the nonverbal communication of Prince Andrew, or former Prince Andrew, as he more or less deconstructs his entire life in front of us. It's a little bit of a dumpster fire on that side of things, but more on that in a second. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. So like I said, this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I suggest you go and watch that. It includes the backstory, some of the history, and the first part of this analysis. This is going to pick up right where the other one left off as well. So if you're watching these in series, it should be pretty okay. So that's enough of the talking side of things. I think it's pretty good for us to go ahead and dive right back in to this.
Do you feel that you were part of Epstein's public rehabilitation?
Oh, no. Funny enough, I don't. No. I mean, if that photograph was taken for that with that purpose in mind, then it doesn't equate to what actually happened.
So why wouldn't you announce this breakup when you got back? Why wouldn't you publicly explain what you'd done? Did you worry that he had something that could compromise you?
No.
Do you regret that trip?
Yes.
Do you regret the...
Okay. This is all just fascinating nonverbal behavior. So one of the things that I saw most commonly in the comments was like, it's very obvious that this person is lying. And for many people, that's very true, that this is like one of those instances that you're just like, I mean, can't you just tell? Because you can just tell, but the issue is that that's pretty hard to explain or reproduce in any way. So what we're noticing in this area is this difficulty, again, with the constant stammering and stuttering that he constantly has when it comes to having a difficult question directed towards him. So he has that as well, once again, as she's asking a difficult question, which just lets us know that he's backpedaling already. This entire interview feels like it was completely unprepared for. He had no idea what he was walking into, and it didn't go super hot for him, to be honest, but more on that in a sec. Let's continue.
You regret the whole friendship with Epstein?
Now, still not, and the reason being...
Okay, so here's the interesting thing. Her question was, in case you missed it, is did you regret the trip to go? And he says yes, with a very high-pitched yes. And now she's asking, do you regret the overall friendship with Epstein? And so he's quickly trying to figure out how to navigate this in a way that doesn't compromise him in any way, which, again, is fishy nonetheless. But at the very least, I suppose we could say it's understandable. But again, he has a pretty substantial postural change in there as he adjusts to take a new role of explanation here that must have been different in some way in his mind than the explanation he was giving before. And so now he's giving this, well, I mean, yeah, no, kind-ish, well, sort of answer. And that's not... It's not the response that you kind of want to hear. Do you regret being friends with a multi-time convicted child? Bad person, really bad person? Do you feel bad about that? I think it should be a pretty quick, yeah, I feel bad about associating with those kind of people, hanging out at their house, spending time with them, being chummy with them and such. But that's not his immediate response. It's fascinating, and I know why he's doing it politically and whatnot, but okay, but let's continue.
Is that the people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn, either by him or because of him, were actually very useful. He himself, not, as it were, as close as you might think. We weren't that close. So therefore.
Okay, so we've seen a tone change and a flow of words change. So we've got tempo, tone change, things like that, all rolling into this whole flow of stuff that he's saying. So he's very specifically choosing his words, and you can tell because of the spacing and the very even spacing between these words, he's just concentratedly selecting these words. He's trying not to say anything incriminating, would be my bet in this area, but there's nothing to really say. And then it gets around to the part to where he's talking about the actual relationship between him and Epstein, not the benefits of the relationship, but the actual friendship itself. And then he starts his classic backpedaling, agitation, stumbling, stammering, uhs. Classic thing that he does that we know is a sign of intense agitation. So if he was so carefully saying this area and then he's very, very agitated and backpedaling on this other area, it's still just gathering more information, allowing us to be able to understand him a little bit better and adding this to the prior information from the previous video. By the time we're done with this interview, I think we'll have some solid grounds to be able to stand on with just the overall presentation of Andrew. But we'll see in a bit.
I mean, yes, I would go and stay in his house, but that was because of his girlfriend, not because of him.
Was that visit December of 20...
That's very fascinating that he tries to hang it all on because of his girlfriend, not because of him. I don't know that that's necessarily true. The reason that I saw that at the beginning, or the reason that I'm not necessarily buying into that, was that substantial lip lick in the beginning, once again indicating a dry mouth, agitation. This is all centered around being friends with Epstein. So, yeah, that would be a nerve-wracking question, but he has tried again and again and again to hang it on everything else other than he could possibly be a bad person. In his narrative, there's just nothing that we can hang any sort of humanity on him on, and that action of painting himself out to be a very pure, completely guilt-free character is where a lot of people are like, do you expect us? Do you expect us to believe that after what we've seen? And so that's kind of where you're seeing these disconnects come in as well. So let's continue watching.
2010, the only time you saw him after he was convicted.
Yes.
Did you see him or speak to him again?
No, that was that.
Never
Funny enough,
since
2010 was it. That was it, because I went. Well, first of all, I wanted to make sure that if I was going to go and see him, I had to make sure that there was enough time between his release, because it wasn't something that I was going into in a hurry, but I had to go and see him. I had to go and see him. I had to
stay with him and stay in the house.
I could easily have gone and stayed somewhere else, but sheer convenience of being able to get a hold of the man.
Okay, I still find it interesting. He breathes almost a sigh of relief when she kind of moves on from this instance, and then it dives right back in again because she's very good at her job and wearing down psychologically the person she's talking to get them trapped. And I will continue to speak the praises of the interviewer in this, but he now has the issue of revisiting the situation again. She's asked the question again and stay at his house. And he's now having the same issue brought up again, so he has another postural change, and his frustration is coming in. He's lowering his brow a bit, and he is getting defensive as he also tucks his chin in. There's a whole cluster that's in there letting us know that his guard has flown back up, and he's exasperated again, and he falls apart again. So we're just seeing how poorly he handles agitation, and it's comical to watch. It's just a comical observation to make, but let's continue.
I mean, he was in and out all over the place. So getting him in one place for a period of time to actually have a long enough conversation to say, look, these are the reasons why I'm not going to. And that happened on the walk.
July of this year, Epstein was arrested.
Once again, he couldn't have done this over phone. I mean, cool. If you don't want to do it over phone, do it over video call. Just don't do what you did if you have to see the... you know what? I don't think anybody's buying this I had to go and see the sex offender to his face to let him know that we're not friends sort of thing. So I don't know why he continually tried to pull that over everybody's eyes, that was his approach to stuff. And still, you would think after years of being in front of the public eye, he would have a little bit more ability to compose himself and mask agitation a little bit better. It's more common for people who have been in front of the public eye or cameras or anything a fair bit to be able to mask that a little better. And he's just not. So either one, he's completely out of practice, or two, this is rocking him pretty heavily down to his core because this is a pretty serious thing, or he's not used to being approached and challenged in this way and having to give reasons for what he does. Now, it could be any one of those, but the likelihood is, I'm assuming it's probably a combination of those and some other aspects that we're probably not aware of. But it's just... It's incredible. It's incredible to watch somebody flounder this much over something that a topic that should not have needed this much floundering. But here, let's go.
On charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
So he maintained very astutely blank expression throughout there. I was trying to pay attention to see if there was any movement in his pupils, not that I could see. Even the finer movements around the corners of his nose and mouth and things like that. So this is fascinating to me. It's fascinating because this lets us know he does have somewhat of a poker face that he can pull out. That's a little bit more difficult to navigate through. And so the only indicators to me that are worrisome is that he has gone from this very overtly stuttery, stammery, or confidently speaking style of verbiage, and now he's gone to a very subdued, blank expression, gentle tone, soft tone. There is still that variance from his nonverbals before to now, but as far as just the physical positive spikes, the activity that we could see, he does have apparently the ability to mask that still some. So we have to keep that in mind as we continue forward.
None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
She says she met you in 2001. She dined with you. She danced with you. You bought her drinks. You were in Tramp nightclub in London. And she went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Didn't happen.
Do you remember her?
No.
Fascinating. Very fascinating. Very consistent, steady eye gaze throughout that, which I'm watching. I'm trying to see if there's any agitation tells around there that could be an indicator, and there's really nothing. So this is still very, very interesting throughout this. The only thing that could really be noted is that he's not animated. His pitch and tone and his voice, the quality of it has dropped very, very low and very soft. That could be for a couple reasons. It's likely a blend between the seriousness of it and possibly a lack of confidence. If there is any seepage, that would be an area that we could see that. He's also tucking his chin a bit and lowering his brow. Those are aggressive and defensive moves in the same move, and looking up out of the corner of his eye in a calculated manner. So this is just a fascinating area for me, and it still stands out as interesting because it's different. It's different from the rest of this interview that we've seen so far. Let's continue watching this.
I have no recollection of ever meeting her. I'm convinced that I was never in Tramps with her. There are a number of things that are wrong with that story. One of which is that I don't know where the bar is in Tramps. I don't drink. I don't think I've ever bought a drink in Tramp whenever I was there.
Do you remember dancing at Tramp?
Now we're getting to the part where, if you remember in the first episode of this, I said, it's hilarious that he uses the phrase "you have to remember." Because now we're getting to the part where I believe Andrew just has lost most of his memory. He's going to start not remembering a lot of really important details, just consistently only not remembering those, but definitely remembering not doing those, which is kind of interesting in and of itself as well. And a lot of the excuses that he's even coming up with, and the reason that I'm harping on just the verbal side of this alone right now is because you don't need to move too much further beyond the verbal side. You have to address even that at its face value, and he's giving such terrible reasons for his stuff that you don't even have to move past that. I don't remember is not an alibi. Like, it would never fly in any other realm, so nor should it here. So I don't remember, or I don't think that I did that. It can't fly. And so he's only had that option. That's all that he's had, is that he can't remember, or it would not happen. Just couldn't even happen. I can't conceive of it. Those aren't reasons. That's not genuine reasons. But let's continue.
No, that couldn't have happened because the date that is being suggested, I was at home with the children.
You know that you were at home with the children. Was it a memorable night?
On that particular day that we now understand is the date.
I'm just going to pause it because he's doing things that are letting us know. We know he's stammering and stuttering, so this is going to cause him some issue. So there's the possibility of what he's about to say could be deceitful. Pay attention. So we see that building up, and now he's about to start blowing some sort of smoke, according to his nonverbal communication. That's just what he's leading up to. But let's see how that actually plays out. Is that how that genuinely flows, or have we missed some things?
Which is the 10th of March. I was at home. I was with the children. I'd taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party at I suppose sort of 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And then because the Duchess was away, we have a simple rule in the family that when one's away, the other one's there. I was on terminal leave at the time from the Royal Navy, so therefore I was at home.
Why would you remember that so specifically? Why would you remember a Pizza Express birthday and being at home?
Because going to Pizza Express in Woking is an unusual thing for me to do.
I feel like he's cleared, right? I mean, like, if it's weird for him to go to pizza, and that's why he remembers that day specifically, and not because this is an incriminating day and he's a terrible person, then yeah, I don't think he needs much better evidence. And once again, another one of his reasons is that, oh, the family does it this way, so we wouldn't expect you to understand, you not part of the family person, this is how the family does it. So then you just have to kind of rest assured that me, as one of the family, and telling you that what the family does apart from you is definitely the truth. And it's cyclical logic and it doesn't work. But cool, continue.
A very unusual thing for me to do. I've only been through Woking a couple of times, and I remember it weirdly distinctly. As soon as somebody reminded me of it, I went, oh yes, I remember that.
This entire area, he's characterized by contempt. Like he's got it. The smug contempt, it's aloof. Happiness would be a way of describing his emotive base right now. He really feels like he's just got an ace in the hole. Wow. Judge, jury, session up. Like, wow, that solves it. It's amazing to me. But let's continue.
But I have no recollection of ever meeting or being in the company or the presence.
So you're absolutely sure that you're at home on the 10th of March.
Yeah.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating.
We're getting to see a little bit of Andrew's opinion of himself come in. Somebody has now attacked like his look, how he appears, and now he's showing this as well. He's stopping an entire interview about this much larger incident, and he's like, hold on, about the sweating? But here, we have to watch it. You just have to see it to understand.
Because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was, yes, I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at, and I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat, and it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to do that again. So I'm afraid to say that there's a medical condition that says that I didn't do it, so therefore.
Is it possible that you...
I am not a doctor. So those of you who are out there and in the medical field, please tell me if that is a genuine thing. Is there a thing that he's talking about that I'm not aware of? I wasn't able to find it, nor did I hear anybody else bring it to light, so I'm not sure. Maybe there's something very unique that stopped him from sweating. What I did find interesting in this area, and while he stuttered and stammered and stumbled through what I will argue is not true. I found photos of him from that time, very obviously sweating. For him to try to go through that and say, oh, I didn't sweat at the time despite the physical evidence existing. And this is evidence that has been there. It's not like somebody went in and retroactively photoshopped sweat onto Prince Andrew for all of these photos. That's where I start having other issues with this, is that he'll overtly lie about other things that have been counteractable. But we got to continue forward on this. Let's do that.
You met Virginia Roberts, dined with her, danced with her in Tramp, had sex with her on another date?
No.
Do you remember meeting her at all?
No.
Do you know you didn't meet her, or do you just not remember meeting her?
No, I don't know if I've met her, but no, I have no recollection of meeting her.
Because she was very specific. She described the dance that you had together in Tramp. She described meeting you. She was a 17-year-old girl meeting a senior member of the royal family.
Never happened.
She provided a photo of the
Yes.
two of you together.
Yes.
Your arm was around her waist.
Yes.
You've seen the photo.
I've seen the photograph.
How do you explain that?
I can't. Because I have absolutely no memory of that photograph ever being taken.
Do you recognize?
So what I'm noticing in this area where he's still sticking very rigidly to this, I have no idea who this is. I've never heard of them, despite the very obvious evidence of that not being true. But what I'm noticing is that every time he does respond, he has a rapid increase of blinking. So blinking, as I've mentioned before, is still another indicator of agitation with a various number of avenues that it could be. It is certainly psychological processing, for sure. There's something that's going around that. We would expect that it's a question. Sure, and it's a weighty one, so maybe even a little bit more intensely. Along with that, it could be considered to be an eye-blocking gesture. As you come into contact with external stimulants, your body will want to block them out on some level, even down to a level that you might not be fully aware of, that can come across in the areas of things like eye blocking, where you close your eyes off to whatever is causing the problem. So that's where that psychologically comes from, but there's not really enough to go off of for sure that that's what's happening there. One of the theories is that if somebody's having a difficulty telling a lie, then perhaps they'll increase their eye blocking. And that could be true. Possibly it could be the case here, but it's not a universal thing. So we're keeping in mind that he does do that and hanging it with everything else that we've gathered as well. Let's continue.
Recognize yourself in the photo?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult not to recognize yourself.
Your friend suggested that the photo is fake.
I think it's from the investigations that we've done, you can't prove whether or not that photograph is faked or not, because it is a photograph of a photograph of a photograph. So it's very difficult to be able to prove it. But I don't remember that photograph ever being taken.
But it's possible that it was you with your arm around
That's
her
me, but whether that's my hand or whether that's the position, But I have simply no recollection of a photograph ever being taken.
The world has now seen.
Okay, so this photograph, if I haven't already put it up yet, here it is again, just so you can see what he's talking about with his hand. To me, and with the experience that I have in photo and video editing, to me, if this is photoshopped, they did a pretty darn good job of that back in the day for the capabilities that were had, in my opinion. That being said, I don't like that he is, again, in such clear evidence trying to say, no, nothing like that happened and blame it on his memory. That it's bad. It is pretty bad, but let's continue forward and I'll add some more.
Seen the photo that Virginia Roberts provided, taken by Epstein, we understand, in Ghislaine Maxwell's house.
Well, here's the problem. I've never seen Epstein with a camera in my life.
Another problem that is based exclusively off of Andrew's perception of things. I still just don't buy Andrew's story with this because there's physical evidence and the requirements and the setup for this. I don't see why that would be a thing. Perhaps Epstein would try something like that. I'm not sure. I just don't see that being likely the case. And now he's also trying to say, I never saw Epstein with a camera, ergo, Epstein never takes photos, ergo, this can't be real. And it's like, I don't think that would pass grade school logic on any level. So what makes you think that you, as a prominent member of political power, should ever think you could depend on that level of ultra unrealistic logic? It's just astounding to me that that happens. So if we're considering his nonverbal communication within the context of what his psychology is presenting and his verbs are presenting, we're getting a really clear idea as to just how and why this demolished him. It's very clear, but let's continue.
I think it was Virginia Roberts' camera. She said a little Kodak one that she lent to Epstein. He took a photo, and your arm is round her waist.
I don't remember that photograph ever being taken. I don't remember going upstairs in the house, because that photograph is taken upstairs. And I'm not entirely convinced that, I mean, that is what I would describe as me in that picture, but we can't be certain as to whether or not that's my hand on her whatever it is, left side.
You think that...
Because I have no recollection of that photograph ever being taken.
So why would...
And therefore, it must not be true, because we have to just Does he not get... Does he not understand that, like, saying, I don't remember it isn't a reason? I mean, I understand that's a limitation, but that's never a reason. And I think what he's running into the issue of is that he can't say that the photo's been faked, because that implies that he has prior knowledge or extra knowledge that he's then not giving. So he can't say that it's been faked. So he has to say, oh, well, there's no way for us to prove that it's not fake or real or whatever. And so he leaves it nebulous and often limbo kind of thing, to where he can hopefully skirt around it. And so when it comes time for a concrete thing, he's like, well, I don't remember it, so it probably didn't happen. Epstein didn't even know how to take photographs. Like, a camera, I've never even seen him hold a single camera in my life. And that could be somebody else's hand. And that looks like me, but I don't know whose hand that is. It's just like, ooh, okay.
Would somebody have put in another hand? You think it is you next to her in the photo?
Oh, it's definitely me. I mean, that's a picture of me. It's not a picture of... I don't believe it's a picture of me in London, because when I go out in London, I wear a suit and a tie. That's what I would describe as, those are my travelling clothes if I'm going to go...
That caused him some problems there. I wear a suit and a tie. He had difficulty getting it out. You could feel the lack of force behind his words at the end there. And then he does a really quick little fluttery breath in as well. So that's a sign of agitation and nerves centered around this. I'm wondering if at this point he's like, this is not an excuse that I always wear a suit and tie when I travel to this place. That's okay. Again, cool. Not evidence, but I'm glad that you, quote unquote, always wear the same clothes when you fly to those places. Very cool.
If I'm going overseas, so I've got plenty of photographs of me dressed in those sorts of, sort of kit, but not there.
Just to clarify, so you think that photo has been faked?
Nobody can prove whether or not that photograph has been doctored, but I don't recollect that photograph ever being taken.
And you...
Again, so she's trying to get him to admit some level of information and knowledge on it. The way he's responding is that it implies he has extra information, and she knows that, and she's trying to get at that, and he won't let her, but in not letting her, it's also revealing. His silence in this area, or his attempt in silence in this area, is just as revealing as his words in this area. It's comically ridiculous.
You don't recollect having your hand round her waist in Ghislaine Maxwell's house on any occasion, even if it was a different date?
I'm terribly sorry, but if I, as a member of the royal family, and I have a photograph taken, and I take very, very few photographs, I am not one to, as it were, hug, and public displays of affection are not something that I do.
For the love of God, Andrew, nobody cares what you quote unquote do or don't do. We need more than that. So what he's done non-verbally here is he's starting to see tension in his jaw. He's also now fully lowering his brow without tucking the chin in. It's a difference of here to here. And so now he's leaning in. This is an aggressive, I'm looking down the barrel at you, so to speak. He's going into an aggressive mode here, and he pulls out just his wild card. He's got nothing else, and he's like, as a member of the royal family. Very interesting. Still not a reason. I understand that the people in the royal family operate differently. Sure, everybody operates differently. That doesn't matter. It's still not a reason. Because if your reason is, I don't usually do that, then that means that the only way to get around that is that you do it anyway. So it's not a reason. He's not providing reasons. And now he's trying to throw his title around like it's something impressive, which now he doesn't have the ability to do that either. From what I understand, politically, he has been stripped of all titles, and soon it might even have to be added to his social levels as well, to where he might not be able to claim. That's where I understand most recently, correct me if I'm wrong. But so now this argument is even more null and void. Well, as a member of the royal family, who cares? Who cares? All right, let's go.
So that's the best explanation I can give you. And I'm afraid to say that I don't believe that photograph was taken in the way that has been suggested.
Why would people not believe that you were there?
So he's tried to throw in, he's dropped this really big thing. Remember, I'm part of the royal family, as like a threat. He's trying to now establish this dominance in this area. And she listens to him blunder through, calmly takes that in, and dives right back into it. And it's brilliant. It's so well done. She, as the interviewer, knows the power she has at the point of that interview, and she relies on that, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. So we have to see now a man who was not used to being approached or pushed against. Now he has to give reasons for his bad behavior, and he has to do so in a way that's satisfactory. And he's having a massive difficulty doing it. It's very fascinating.
I'm sorry, why would...
I'm just trying to understand. There's a photo inside Ghislaine Maxwell's house. Ghislaine herself is in the background. Why would people not believe that you were there with her that night?
They might well wish to believe it, but the photograph is taken upstairs, and I don't think I ever went upstairs.
Oh my goodness. I've and I don't remember going upstairs. I don't think I went upstairs, and that's his defense. That doesn't matter, Andrew. For once, your recollection or your opinion of what has happened is not the deciding factor. It's the facts that matter, not you in this. And so nobody cares that you can't remember going upstairs. Apparently you can't remember most things. So, okay, you have to have more than that. More. And that's frustrating on just a logical sense. Non-verbally speaking, he's now settling back into his other defensive mode. He's tucking his chin back in. You see that he's sitting back. No longer is he like, I'm gonna tell you what for because I'm this important person. Now he's realized, okay, she's still pointed and attacking at this. I have to figure out another approach. So he's shifted back. He's tucking his chin and he's talking lower again into his defensive line. Fascinating. This is not an indicator of authenticity. This change in attack plan as an interviewer goes across, this attempt to regain control and power and direct this doesn't indicate that he's being authentic. It indicates that he has something he's trying to push and only something that he's trying to push. Otherwise, questions would be able to be answered more freely and there wouldn't be this odd, strange dynamic. But let's continue watching.
There's, in Ghislaine's house.
You're sure of that?
Yeah, because the dining room and everything was on the ground floor. It was as you came in the hall. So I don't remember ever going up there. I'm at a loss to explain this particular photograph. If the original was ever produced, then perhaps we might be able to solve it, but I can't.
You can say categorically that you don't recall meeting Virginia Roberts, dining with her,
Yep.
dancing with her at Tramp, or
Yep.
going on to have sex with her
Yes.
in a bedroom in a house in Belgravia.
I can absolutely categorically tell you it never happened.
Do you recall any kind of sex?
So he does a prolonged eye blink there. I can absolutely categorically tell you. Now that could be seen as an eye blocking. It could be. It even semi makes sense in the context. It could be a deceit point, especially since we kind of have a lot of evidence pointing us to the other direction, and he hasn't really provided us much reason to believe him. So it could be a deceit point. But the other thing that I have found in experience rather than just what you hear in the books is that this prolonged blink as well can be a sign of resignation. It's not necessarily an eye blocking gesture. It could just be that resigned answer, that finalized answer. That eye block could indicate that as well. But I will note that there are more possibilities than that point, so we have to remember it, keep it in mind, and keep it in mind with context, which, like I said, with context, it's likely an indicator of deceit, but maybe not.
Sexual contact with Virginia Roberts,
None.
or any other time?
None whatsoever.
Because she said in a legal deposition, a legal court document in 2015, she had sex with you 3 times. Yeah. She is not confused about this. She said the first was in London when she was trafficked to you. The second...
So the interviewer knows what his opinion is of himself as well, because you could see him have a small smile of contempt, and he's leaning back. He's once again shifting positions to try to be aloof. And she catches that. She sees that, and she catches that right away. And she's not confused before he can say, oh, she's probably confused. And so he laughs after that. And now the smirk that was there before has fallen away because he realized that he slept out some of his contempt, and she caught it. And that's just, I mean... It's ridiculous. It's again ridiculous that he's going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, no, she's just baffled or confused. Okay, maybe, sure. Your actions sure support that. Andrew's actions support that she's confused. Not that he's trash, that she's confused. And he's still trying to pull that off.
Was at Epstein's mansion in New York.
That is a date in April, I believe. Is that correct?
She said it was a month or so later.
Yeah. Well, I think that the date that we have for that shows that I was in Boston, or I was in New York the previous day, and I was at a dinner for the Outward Bound Trust in New York, and then I flew up to Boston the following day. And then on the day that she says that this occurred, they'd already left to go to the island before I got back from Boston. So I don't think that could have happened at all.
There was a...
I understand that. And so he says what we have. And that's fascinating verbiage that he's used there. My question is, who is the we? And that should be the question there, is who is the we that you're referring to? Because the way he's painting it out is that there's what everybody is saying, the other evidence, kind of everything that everybody else has said, and then there's this we that says, oh, well, according to us, the nebulous we over here, and my schedule, then that's why none of this works. And it's another form of this same cyclical reasoning. His only evidence for him not being a terrible person is that he doesn't remember it. He doesn't remember it, or he doesn't think that it happened that way, or he can't think of it. There's nothing that he's provided us genuinely to help his case at all. That's terrible.
Witness there, Johanna Stolberg, who says that you did visit the house in that month.
I probably did. I don't think on one of the weird things, I was staying with the because of what I was doing, I was staying with the Consul General.
Brilliantly done by her. Here's a question. I'll let you dig yourself a hole, and then I'll hand you a new shovel with more evidence so you can dig it a little deeper. Were you there? No. We think that I wasn't there. Well, there was evidence. There was a witness, an eyewitness that also testified that you were there. And he falls apart again. Now he's like, oh, well, yeah, I was there. Meaning we saw him just blatantly lie to us a second ago. It's amazing to me. Amazing to me that this ever was allowed to hit air. Wow.
Which is further down the street on Fifth. So I wasn't staying there. I may have visited, but no, definitely no activity.
Because in a legal deposition, 2015, she said she had sex with you 3 times. Once in a London house when she was trafficked to you in Maxwell's house.
Yes.
Once in New York a month or so later at Epstein's mansion, and once on his private island in a group of 7 or 8 other girls.
No.
No to all of it?
All of it. Absolutely no to all of it.
Okay. I mean, if we were to just take him at his word, that would be fair. So watching him respond to each of these allegations that were brought towards him, the first one we can see is frustrating to him. He has a quick fluttered eye blink in there that's mixed in with that partial eye roll. That's just an indicator of low-grade frustration. He's aware of that one, frustrated by that one. The second one comes in, and I have some questions in this area because he throws his eyebrows together in the very overt, this is absurd, I'm acting very surprised expression. And it's so overt that oftentimes in these areas where it's held out, like he holds it out, it's that prolonged expression that's off because it doesn't flow with the same emotional pattern that genuine emotions do. So he holds that for a while, and that's just interesting to me. It's a possibility of a fake forced emotion, which, fascinating. And then he goes on beyond that to add some more surprise in there as well with just the raising of the eyebrows, and then goes off into his explanation of things, which is a deep breath, and then no. And he collapses in. His voice drops, his pitch drops, everything about his confidence drops, and he says, no. And he says it in such a way like he's proven it. Like, you said that like that's good, that you can just say no and that counts. And maybe that has before, but it's not now.
Why would she be saying those things?
We wonder exactly the same, but I have no idea.
We wonder exactly the same. Once again, this nebulous we. I'm assuming he's talking about maybe the royal family. We now see that perhaps we, as the people watching this, now see that perhaps maybe the royal family doesn't feel the same way about that. But at least he's confident now that he and the we, that we just have no idea about that. There's nothing non-verbally that sticks out as far as like an overt straying from his baseline in that I could be like, oh, he's non-verbally provable that he's being desynchronized here. But I mean, just verbally we can get there easily. So.
Absolutely no idea.
She made these claims in a US deposition. Mm-hmm. Are you saying you don't believe her, she's lying?
That's a very difficult thing to answer because I'm not in a position to know what she's trying to achieve, but I can tell you categorically, I don't remember meeting her at all. I do not remember a photograph being taken, and I've said consistently and frequently that we never had any sort of sexual contact whatever.
She spoke
during that entire time, a lot of difficulty holding eye contact, tucking up the chin, lowered tone, not a lot of confidence seeping out from him in this area, and it wraps up to it at the end again because just according according to him, which non-verbally we can see that we might not want to trust what he's saying or should be wary of it. And then contextually seeing, we can see that he's absolutely happy to lie and bend the truth right in front of us. So we have to start really weighing everything equally in this before we can make our decision, but we're almost there.
About you outside the court in August of this year. She said, I quote, "He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it."
And the answer is nothing.
So if Virginia Roberts is watching this interview, what is your message to her?
I don't have a message for her, because I have to have a thick skin. If somebody's going to make those sorts of allegations, then I've just got to have a thick skin and get on with it.
You're right, Andrew. You're the one under attack. Poor little boy with the thick skin. He had to move on from it. He has to move on from being a terrible human. That's great. That's fine. And hold on. During this, it's getting more difficult for me to focus on his nonverbal communication just as the interview progresses and I hear him so blatantly be a terrible human, even just verbally. I'm trying to just watch what his nonverbal communication is saying, and his words are so much more infuriating than his nonverbal communication is, that it's only amplified by what he's demonstrating, and it's just making it more infuriating. Thank you for your patience on this. I am trying very hard to maintain a nice, calm, collected manner.
But they never happened.
For the record, is there any way you could have had sex with that young woman or any young woman trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein in any of his residences?
No.
Agitation, intense agitation. He's laughing, but it's not humor. He's not laughing because of funniness. We know that, but you could see that because the concentration and the anger and agitation that's in his eyes and eyebrows stays constant while he does his laugh. And he does a really substantial leaning forward out of his chair switch of posture here. So another big change. He's very agitated around this and in an aggressive manner. So then he catches himself and says this.
And without putting too fine a point on it, if you're a man, it is a positive act to have sex with somebody. You have to take some sort of positive action. And so therefore, if you try to forget, it's very difficult to try and forget positive action. And I do not remember anything. I've racked my brain and thinking, oh, well, when the allegations came out originally, I went, well, that's a bit strange, I don't remember this. And then I've been through it and through it and through it over and over and over again. And no, nothing. Never happened.
I'm stopping it there. I personally, on just a personal and emotional level, had a lot of issues with his reasoning for why he feels like he's innocent with that. It's a positive action crap that he spewed out there. So his final argument with that, and in this episode, which let me know, would you like part 3 of this? If you haven't let me know yet, please let me know in the comments. So at the final part of this episode with this, his final argument, again, his nail in the coffin of convincing us that he's innocent is, I don't remember. Again. So far, all that we know is that we cannot trust a single word Andrew will say. Because he has shown repeatedly throughout this interview alone that he is very, very happy to only disclose the purest parts of him. And if that's all that he's going to disclose in this area where it's known that there aren't, that means he's hiding stuff. And he's willing to hide it until it's confronted concretely. So this interviewer has gone through and concretely confronted this again and again and again and trapped him out in a lie so many times, making him backpedal, twist his narrative around, and scramble to try to fit this weird, just the world happens to Andrew narrative that he's concocting here. And it's not good news. It's very not good news, because this is not a scientific thing at all. I can't be like, look at the research that I have here. There's no research papers. This is just from me making an assumption. I'm going to assume that there are more secrets to Prince Andrew and people that you don't know than you will ever be privy to. And oftentimes there will be darker secrets that you will likely not be privy to. That's just, I'm assuming, with a fair bit of reason for it. So if he's willing to bend the truth at every possible turn, even when confronted with physical evidence, what is he willing to hide when it's not confronted, is my question. It's a big question. I think it's an important question. I think it's a question that many people have been asking. But non-verbally speaking, we've seen an entire slew of agitation and lack of confidence scattered in with contempt, anger, and uncertainty. And so with all of that in mind, that doesn't really push us non-verbally to buy into his I'm a fully innocent and I can prove it human. It's just fascinating. It's just fascinating that honestly, that this was allowed. That's this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you would like me to be able to analyze something else, please let me know those in the comments below as well. I do try to track those as much as possible. I'm trying to work on engaging more with my comments and whatnot. It's very overwhelming, but I'm giving it a good shot. So thank you. Thank you for the support and for the feedback in there. I really do appreciate it. If you would like to be able to see more videos like this, I upload them a couple times a week. I try to upload on Mondays and Fridays, but I gotta be honest, it almost never happens. So it's a twice a week maybe-ish sort of thing. I hope you enjoy those. But yeah, there will be some true crime. There will be some stuff like this. There will be random TV drama stuff, YouTube drama, a whole collection of things as things come out. But thank you again for watching this video. And without further ado, that's all that I've got for today. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.